change in the night. I thought I heard it coming from you. I thought I heard a change in your voice. Thought what I heard was the truth. See, some folks have tried before, and where they failed, you will. Some folks have tried before, and where they failed, you will succeed. Even if it's only because there's nothing left to believe. What a kind of strange and unlovely relief.
Hi. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm super excited to be here with Beth Lisick. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Michelle. I'm super excited to be here with you. I was just saying before we started here officially that I've just been spending the last 2 days really listening to you. And it's been so enjoyable. I want to tell everybody that I first heard you when Eli was mixing some of your songs a couple of years ago. And from the other room, he was doing some listening, and I was just like, who is that? And your voice is so warm and just I think it's really a special, evocative, warm voice. And it was fun to be able to get into the lyrics, which is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's funny because I was like, okay, I need to do the second part of this show. And then I was like, let's change it up. Like, let's talk about lyrics. Like, who would be a good person to talk about this with? And I'm like, oh my God, why don't I pick the best person to talk about this with? And then be scared after I invite you.
No, tell everybody, because hopefully my mom is watching this, because I sent her the link.
Yay.
And but talk about the barn shows and kind of what you're doing with this project.
Yeah, so I think for my music, I started thinking about more intimate performances. And also the area that I live in now is a rural area in it's Nevada County, and there aren't large, gigantic gatherings, and there certainly aren't over the past 2 years. And so I was trying to think of what would be a meaningful performance. I had a few things stifled in the fall. It's like, a venue that didn't happen because of COVID, and then the fires, and then we did a show in my house just to like try and just let it all kind of wash over us and not have like this thing where you're staring at the horrible thing and nothing moves forward, but letting it all exist as it does, right? And but that was important and good, and certainly felt good for us as artists, with me and the rest of the band. But I thought, what would happen if people were in my house right now and actually enjoying this show? And so then Ben Zappin, who's in this community, offered his barn, and at first I was just like terrified of that idea. I was like, that's too much for me to take on. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, it just hit me. I was like, you know what? I need to do this. Everybody free in 2 weeks? Because it almost was that we were in that period where you could only plan 2 weeks ahead in a way,
Yeah.
So we got some people in a barn and played some music and recorded it, thankfully. And I think also this last year, it's interesting because for all of 2020, what year are we in? 2021, right? For all of 2021 and a little bit of 2022, I was doing a weekly interview show, and I was sharing a new work every week, and I was just like powering through this pandemic, and then all of a sudden in March, I think the PTSD of it just hit me, and I was like, I can't do this show. I can barely share this music, and I don't know. I just felt like almost a winter hibernation. So I feel like
Mhm.
this kind of shakes it off a little bit and gets me thinking about what's next. And yeah, so those were all the things that happened with the barn, and I think what I'm
Yeah.
going to do next is a like I don't know. I've been calling them secret, like secret barn shows. So maybe it's like secret strings in a field is on the horizon, maybe for the fall. So
Mhm. And you did a first I watched the first installment that you did of the live streaming, which was with all the musicians because you had an
yeah,
amazing band, and that was also what you're saying, people just like, "Okay, who can come? Let's get together and do it." So that's a good one for people to watch too, the first half of, uh, this live, kind
oh
of the
yeah, the
live streaming
part one
installment.
for sure.
Part 1. Well, I think let's start with the song. I
Okay, let's
told
do
you that
it.
I
Let's
wanted to
do it.
start with "Release" because I think it's
All
such a
right.
great way to start. So let's
Okay.
just listen. Let's listen.
Okay.
"Release" by Michelle.
We're floating at the edge of our needs. Are your minds more at ease, my friends? Keep listening for relationship, for time without disguise. And oh, look what's happening to you. And oh, look what's happening to me. The time we have now, what it replaces, the songs you hear in your left mind spaces, the spark of joy when your heart bursts open, the static pop of the truth being spoken, a flash of fear in a hesitation, a memory of a limitation. So many things that you can't do now, so many things that you can't do. Release the pressure valve, believe in what is now the truth. It's good and bad and ugly, and beautifully struggling. Good and bad and ugly, beautifully struggling. We're floating at the edge of our needs. Are your minds more at ease, my friends? So keep listening for relationship, for time without disguise. And oh, look what's happening to you. And oh, look what's happening to me. The time we have now, what it replaces, the songs you hear in your left mind spaces, the spark of joy when your heart bursts open, the static pop of the truth being spoken, a flash of fear as a hesitation, so many times of a limitation, so many things that you can't do right now, so many things that you can't do. Release the pressure valve, relieve in what is now the truth. It's good, it's bad, it's ugly. It's beautifully struggling. It's good,
Yeah, so beautiful. I really feel like I need to hear that song now. That because that's a new song in you've got 2022 on the notes that you sent me, but I was hearing it so much more as a, pandemic song. And then just now with this school shooting that happened today, it's like I heard it in a whole different way. And it's so the first line is we're floating at the edge of our needs. So talk about writing this song.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's see. There's an image, sometimes there's an image in my head as I'm singing things, and I definitely had that feeling of like of floating in a pool, but not, so you're not unsafe, but it's not comfortable.
Mhm.
There's unknown, and there's and it's just like where we were in this holding pattern of not knowing what's next, and in a way how essential that is to the kinds of change I think we want to see in the world.
Mhm.
Like we have to be floating at the edge of our needs in order to um see new opportunities. Or I mean, maybe not, I don't know, I think sometimes my lyrics are a lot of things at once, so I'm just kind of talking whatever comes to mind.
Well, I also want to point out that you use the word struggly, which is a really great. It's good, it's bad, it's ugly, it's beautiful, it's struggly, which I noticed that in a couple other songs too. That it's so nice that you can invent your own vocabulary when you need it, when it's there for you.
Right,
Um,
yes, yeah, for
um,
sure.
so you also write poetry. I heard you say during the show when you're talking. So what is the relationship between your poetry and lyrics? Like, how are they different for you?
Well, I don't the poetry used to be more frequent when I was in my teens and into my 20s, and then it just kind of appeared in a piece that I wrote specific to Hafez Mudirzadeh and his study with Ornette Coleman. But I don't know that they're that different. I guess the thing that's different, like for example, when I was sending you the text for the songs so that you
Mhm.
could consider them, um, it was funny to me how hard it is to convey the shape of the word in type. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you have that problem, like what if you encounter that as well, where you hear it a certain way, and it's like, how can I make sure, how can I help someone hear it the way that I'm intending to, or even
I
just give it
have
a
that.
try, you
Yeah,
know?
I feel like I have that with when I'm writing dialogue. And
Mhm.
so it's a little bit different. It's less the sound of the word, but the meaning of what it is. But I feel
Mhm.
like with you singing it, you have this whole added um, tool that you can
Definitely.
work it in there.
Yes.
And
Yeah, there's
that's
definitely the benefit of that, and I appreciate that benefit for sure. There's a lot that you can do with this. There's a lot of bendiness that
yeah.
you can do with music and a word that you can't do.
And do
It's
you
just
ever, when you're writing a song and you're writing lyrics and something doesn't sound right to your ear, do you, are you able to think about, okay, this is changing the meaning now because I'm changing the word? Does that make sense?
yeah,
So
totally.
you're just like, all right, I can't use that word here, so I'm going to use this other word, but now this meaning gets fractured or changes.
Yes,
Um,
yeah. And also, I mean, I don't know if you experience that with your writing, that maybe you write something a long time ago, but then you reconsider it, and it continues to grow and have different meanings across time. I mean, um, even the song for the intro, that I played for the intro of this show is from 2014, and
mhm.
it's totally the time. I mean, we played it in a different time signature, but I was listening to the recording. It's off of my How to Love album, and it's so, I almost feel like I sound 10 years old. Like, you have all these like reflections. You're like, whoa, I'm a little kid in this song somehow, or I'm a younger me, or without any judgment of whether that's better or not. I don't, it's just is. But I think it's interesting to listen, and it's like, oh, that version of it is so almost aloof.
Oh, that's interesting. Right.
Yeah.
And then the old mother time comes in and changes everything. You're like, ooh, so much deeper now. I'm so much
No, it is for sure. Yes.
wait, that was making me think of something else. Um, oh shoot, I think I lost it. But okay.
Should
I
we move
want
on to a
to
different song? What do you think?
wait, what?
Oh, I was going to say, should we move on to a different song?
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on to C'est La Vie, which
Okay.
I love because it's, well, one, because of the, I don't know if it was the 70s, C'est La Vie, you know, the like
Oh,
more
I
light
forgot
rock
about that
song.
song. Yes.
Um, but I also love it because that phrase is so tossed off, like, well, C'est La Vie, that's just how it is. And this song is so not that.
Right. Yes, totally.
Okay, one, do you speak French?
I don't, well, I don't speak French. I did take French for many years in elementary school.
Uh-huh. Have you ever used French in your lyrics before or since this?
No, just that
Okay.
phrase.
All
Yeah,
right. So
that's
good. So
funny.
talk about this. 'Cause this is also something that oh God, this is the one with the, you said in the banter, it has images from this marathon, and the words marathon are in the lyrics. And if you ask the audience, have you ever witnessed the end of a marathon? And I have, once dressed as a
Isn't
banana.
it?
When I was doing this, I was handing out bananas dressed as a banana at the end of a marathon. And I was, all goofy. Like I show up, mile 26. Hey, I get, and
Yeah.
everybody is just wrecked. And people are throwing up, pooping their pants. Their nipples are bleeding. I mean, it was
Yeah, it's horrific. It's like a
yeah,
battlefield almost.
it's really
But
horrible. And
I'm so in love with that you were there in a banana suit.
yeah, having a completely different experience than everybody else who had run the marathon. And but of course, in your lyrics, the marathon can be not a literal marathon, but also could be a literal marathon. But so talk about how you decided to use this kind of casual French phrase as the title and in the song, and there's more French in the song too, talking about something that's kind of more profound, deeper thing, and how those go together.
Well, okay. So I think I mean, I don't know about anybody else out there, but I think there's constantly a I don't know, a critiquing voice of failure, and certainly I can't certainly it's like I can't not be honest with myself, and that inevitably results in someone being displeased with something.
Right.
Because it's not their way, and I can't do, I can't do much about that. I can't do much about what I don't achieve personally, and I can't do much about anyone else's disappointment with that fact.
Right.
So I think it came to mind just in my own trying to just talk to myself about failure and what I think about it, and why it weighs so heavy, and just why it's also just the way that it is. And
Right.
so yeah, I think that's where that was coming from. And I think also when you endure anything, when you endure any kind of hardship, you're you almost, you think you can't make it, you think you're going to fail at making it.
Right.
And then when you go through something and you actually are still standing, it's like its own amazing thing. You surprise yourself, I guess.
Right. Right.
So that was kind of also the thing that was bouncing around in there, that song.
Do you have songs where you've tried to write lyrics, or are you currently working on something where you are failing at achieving what you want, that you go back to again and again? Is there any, or do you just work through it and that's it is what it is?
Okay, so that's a like a I wouldn't say it's an ethical writing question, but it is a question I ask myself sometimes when I'm writing, which is, do I need to solve the problem?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right? Like, do I need to like heroically like pick myself up, and does everything have to end in a bow, or can it just be? and I think I sometimes have a hard time with that because I do feel words are powerful, music is powerful, and if it's so negative you can't see your way out, like why would I want that? Why would I leave someone hanging, with
Right.
no option? you know. But I have played with that here and there. I can't think of anything to point to specifically, but it is a question that comes up sometimes, which is like, oh, am I trying to find the rainbow in this story, or am I
Right. Do I need
actually,
to? Does it matter? Is it better that I don't have it? I think that sometimes if you have an idea, it's so frustrating to not be able to see it realized. Like you do your best at it and you kind of fail and it's just still there. And that is what it is. And you have no choice but to, like you said, you're still standing, you just kind of keep moving. And so I think that sometimes the failure can be out there because it's only a failure in our eyes of what we thought it was supposed to be. But you also have this listener or this reader who's on the other end who may be getting something else from it. And it's not
completely,
you're seeing
yeah.
it and they're not.
I mean, that's the thing is you might intend something and then it's read 50 different ways that hopefully are exciting.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're like, wow, I didn't think that we were talking about Pluto. Awesome.
Right. Okay, the next song in your concert series that we have here up is Waves into Strings, which you started out as you said it started out with a different title and morphed over years to a new. How did that work? It started out as
it was originally called Used to Think in Strings, and then I think I was so attracted to the idea of waves of thought turning into strings of thought, or strings of more visible connections to other people, that I wanted to change it in the title.
Do you realize that a theme? Do you I guess are you aware that a theme that you have is space and spatial relationships? Like I get that out of almost every single one of your songs. It's like there's the wave, the space, a circle. This song has a lyric 2 feet, 5 feet, 15 feet.
Oh
which
yeah.
at first I thought was like, oh, is this a pandemic song? Like stay 6 feet away from.
Oh,
before that though.
Before it was written well before. Yes, totally.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I love exploring that area of things. I love exploring because I think it's not defined. It isn't.
Right.
You can put a measurement to it, but it's not 24 exact hours in a day. It's not. I was listening to something about circadian rhythms and how essentially we function because the sun comes up and goes down again, but without that, but in our worlds, we don't think about that as the reality that we exist in. So I love playing around with that. I'll watch any black hole special, anything where we can just be like, ooh, what is there?
I totally get that. There's like this great cosmic element, even in your very stripped down essential, where the lyrics are there, where there aren't a lot of lyrics. There's this very kind of like cosmic, cool element there with very few words, which I think is really a cool thing that comes across. And I wanted you to play Stillness Within Movement, because it kind of, I think it also relates to this, because there's also like dance and movement, and that's a big part. That's just something that I got from listening.
Cool. All right. So I'll play that one right now. Summer wind against my skin, and the hope it's always been there. This kind of stillness within
within movement is the place where I best live. This kind of stillness within movement is the place where I best live. This kind of stillness within movement.
Do you want to give a shout out to your musicians on that
I
track too?
do,
They
I
sound
do.
so good.
Yeah, Go Nakamura on guitar, and some of those effects are so beautiful. Lisa Mezzacappa's on bass there, and Tim Bulkley is on the drums. And yeah, they really, I mean, I think it's interesting. I participated in this Western States cohort dialogues that were bringing together musicians about inclusive democracy. It was very like, what are we doing? Um, oh yeah, we do this or whatever, you know. Oh yeah, we value align with inclusive democracy. But one of the things that they were talking about was how do you pick your team of musicians or whatever it is. And they also shared this chart of where learning can happen, which is a zone of resiliency where you're not too tired, you're not amped up, right? Like we've all been on all those in those places, and it's like, oh, and I was like, oh yeah, I think I pick musicians based off of their ability to stay in the zone of resiliency. That there's
Yeah, that sounds like a Michelle Amador lyric. This zone of resiliency that could work its way in there. Because it is. I mean, it's so funny now that I said that, because now I just keep thinking of all these songs where you have that. And in this concert though, you covered a Japanese breakfast song, which is, and you said that you normally don't do covers, or you haven't really in the past done that many covers. And what is it that speaks to you? Let's just speak lyrically now, like that where you're gonna learn it and cover somebody else's tune, which is gonna take a lot of work. And like, what is it that you hear that makes you want to do that?
I mean, with Japanese breakfast, it was everything, it was the vocal expression, it was the melody, it was the song itself, the lyrics. But with other songs, I actually, through the year when I was doing the weekly show, I actually sometimes specifically picked things that I hated, like lyrics that I thought were dumb. Like
what? Like, can you give an example? Do you
like
remember
a
one?
lyric that uses the word dumb, like if a song has the word dumb or shut up, like it's just like, that's like, so like what there's no complexity to me in those words. But I actually learned a lot from, I mean, in the same way that you might learn something from doing a different character, or a monologue, or playing a different role in a theatrical piece. It was interesting and great, and I think opened me up in important ways that I hadn't realized I was maybe judging and being like snobby in some way. And it's like, oh, it's like everybody has music, and that's great. What a great thing,
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember when I first started writing, somebody said that, in order to learn how to write in certain ways and certain sentences, is just to look at something and write it, and actually just write it by hand, not your own writing, but somebody else's writing. And it's like, it does, the act of doing that makes you move through something into
all the choices, right? All the choices, like why this adjective, why this word, why this.
I did write down a quote actually this afternoon, and it was the first time that I just transcribed a quote in a while. This is a Rilke quote from Letters to a Young Poet. Things are not as easy to understand or express as we are mostly led to believe. Most of what happens cannot be put into words and takes place in a realm which word has never entered. And thinking about lyrics, it made me, I had to write it down. And I thought, God, I haven't actually transcribed someone else's writing in a long time, but it's similar, I think, to that.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Thank you for that tip.
Um,
I will be doing that. That's funny you mentioned Rilke. That's my brother's a writer, a playwright, and a screenwriter, and
oh, cool.
he's like Rilke's. I know of Rilke because of my brother's love of Rilke. So
Oh, good. Well, very apropos. I know I'm looking at the time because I want people to your public to be able to ask you questions later if they want to.
I know. Yeah. I think if folks have questions, go ahead and enter them in. I might have to check directly on social, but that's all right.
Okay. Do you have, we were talking about your brother being influenced by Rilke. Do you have influences, songwriting or poets with you?
There's too many. It's like, it's too much. The world,
like just name 5 people that you.
I mean,
like
Nina Simone, Joni Mitchell, I mean, even Adele, or Amy Winehouse, or I'm trying to think of like a wide range of folks.
Do you listen to music throughout your day?
No, actually, it's interesting. Like a long time ago, I saw this great interview with Tina Turner, and she's like, songwriters, we're not listening to other songs. Like that will infiltrate it will become our song. And I could relate to that in that it's very easy for something to become an earworm and then just not know, like, is this mine or is this someone else's? But I haven't felt that way in a bit of time. And I think part of that is that I am constantly writing. Like if I turn this off, I can hum probably 10 different songs. It's just like if I'm humming throughout the day, there's music. But like when I go running or if I go for a walk, I actually intentionally put on like Apple new music playlist just as like, what do I hate? What do I love? Why are we listening to this? Just to understand what other people are, I don't know, like music journalism. What are people reporting out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let me see what other things I have. Well, I also was thinking about your song, The Highs and Lows, which is not on this segment of the concert, but it does seem to me that it kind of encapsulates a lot of what goes on within a lot of your songs, that there are highs and the highs and lows, and that sometimes it's maybe it's the same thing, or maybe it's you wouldn't have that high without the low, obviously. And I didn't know if that came from, that's a newer song, right?
That's a newer song that I released this year. I recorded it a bit ago, but I released it this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I mean, if it's in short, it's you take the good with the bad, right? But it's also I don't know, we never really know where life is leading us. We think we know, we try to know, we do our best to predict it and set it up that things will happen in a positive, happy way, but it doesn't always work out that way. And we can't really predict in a lot of ways what other, we just can't predict what's going to happen to us. And
do you have an audience in mind, or a listener, or who you're singing to, who you're writing a song for?
Well, I guess it's more, you mentioned I'm interested in space. I think I am definitely interested in space. I'm interested in silence and what's happening there. I'm interested in like communication with very little anything physical happening. And so
this is in that song, the lyric is, the kind of stillness within movement is the place where I best live.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm all in.
All your talking points are right on because they're coming right from your soul, Michelle Amador.
Well, so I feel very interested in that area. So To me, it's, I guess I'm, maybe I'm singing to space nerds. I don't know. Maybe it's missing too. But or just I think also it to me been a wonderful thing to see how maybe in the last 5 years, at least from my perspective, so many people who maybe were outside of society are actually acknowledged to be part of society and welcomed and not treated like a weirdo. I know there are a lot of efforts to turn things around and make everybody feel weird and ostracized, but I think definitely I'm hoping to sing to the person who doesn't want to feel alone.
Yeah, I think Randy mentioned this too in the conversation you had before, but there is this inclusive feeling, and there's a we, and there's an us, and if there's a you, it's like this sort of gentle permission that you're giving to someone else or something. There's this, it's like I see it throughout all the lyrics, this inclusive quality that feels like inviting.
Mm,
And like,
cool. Good.
yeah. Okay, I want to end with this song. It's so great because it has very few lyrics.
Yeah, right.
That I was talking about.
I know I had this moment where I was like putting the lyrics together to send to you, and then I was just like, there's almost nothing on this page.
I
Like,
know. That's why it's so great because to me, it's also how so few words can say so much, and what
yeah.
the meaning that those take on when they're not kind of when you're not inundated with a bunch of words at once. And that's what's cool about this song. Also, is that it says a lot with very, very few words.
All right, we'll play
Eternal.
Yes, you are. Yes, it's true. Eternal. Yes, I am. Yes, I can. Eternal. We won't let go. We won't let go. We won't let go. Eternal. Yes, you are. Yes, it's true. Eternal. Oh, oh, oh. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Eternal. You won't let go. We won't let go. We won't let go. Inferno. Eternal.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely consistently think about how we know how to eat certain foods. Like, how do we know to eat crab? You know what I mean? Like, how do we know that? It's not even your parents don't remember like, nobody knows where the root of that is. That's something that's like this a through line that, and that's I love thinking about that. Or and I also which I mentioned in the SoundCloud recording, which by the way is up until Friday. If folks want to check it out, it's going to be up there. But it also is remarkable how much can be lost in just a generation of existence. I mean, obviously that's a truth that many people know firsthand from genocide, right? But it's also, I think, just true from migration, or unless you happen to have a Bible that has everybody written down in it, you don't really know much about, even a couple. I mean, I have some information on my grandmother. That's it, right? Like grandmothers or whatever, plural. I mean, that's amazing, right? What happened? Where is all of that information?
I love that set of feelings and thoughts is that song.
Yeah, totally.
It's great because it's so open, but I think there is something. What are you playing on that? What is that is the
Oh,
sound?
so I have a Novation X Station. I can't remember the exact sound that I'm using in that point, but I also used the year to finally explore all of the sounds on that, and has some pretty great ones.
Good one. Do you ever feel like in writing lyrics you don't want to make yourself super vulnerable and you want to obfuscate things? And when do you decide when to be vulnerable and when to put something out there as a metaphor? Or
I think I feel my most vulnerable if I feel like it's almost a Hallmark card or something super pure sentiment.
Mhm.
And I don't know why, but I have for many years a very dark sense of humor. I like, I don't know whether it was, in some ways I'm like, was that from the jazz, like being in jazz so much for a while? Like, there's just such a, like, I don't, maybe see there, I shouldn't say that because I'm ruining jazz, and it has nothing to do with
What
jazz.
does jazz do to you,
Nothing to do with
Michelle?
jazz. Jazz is beautiful. It is beautiful, but no, I don't know, whether, for example, I have a good friend, Ryan Hobler, who has an amazing voice, and his songs are so beautiful and pure. And when I lived on the East Coast, I would sing with him and his brother, um, and I was just, part of the intrigue for me to sing those songs was it was lyrics I would never feel like I could write without laughing at myself. Like, they're
Right.
so beautiful and they're so pure, but could I find the space to sing those words,
Right.
So I feel like most of the time, if I feel like I'm being vulnerable, it's like, yes, go ahead and embarrass yourself. Be in the banana suit. It's important.
Very important.
Follow the
Word.
banana instinct.
It is good though. It is good to step. Well, I heard the other day from a friend of mine who was at the Columbia University graduation with a niece that Taylor Swift was given an honorary degree, and her advice in her speech was to lean into the cringe. Which I'm not, I don't actually really know Taylor Swift songs that well, or I have really no opinion. But I did think, well, there is something in that, of course, that we know that you do get somewhere when you do that, when you start going into all those uncomfortable places. And some of them are places that aren't just uncomfortable because it's dark in there, but it's because it sounds
Right.
like a sentiment you hear all the time, and you're like, why? I can't touch that because that's all been done. It's like we're trying to do something different, like cursed with this thing that we need to do something that isn't out there, when it's all like a big circle of like, it's a big black hole of words and music.
Right. And there's continuum of ideas, right? Like, you might have one idea that then leads into the next idea, and I think to me, it doesn't have to like reject everything before it to be. I mean, if you want to do that, you can, but I think it's fun, to explore a theme and kind of grow it and even return to it after a time.
Yeah.
You
That's why I think
know?
it's cool also that you're playing songs kind of from across your songwriting life, and that
Yeah.
you're doing these shows, where you're putting them all together, because it is really cool to hear them all together.
Yeah.
Okay, so your SoundCloud. If anybody wants to type in a question, you can do that
Yeah,
now.
go ahead and let me know if there's any questions.
And the SoundCloud will be up, you said, through the end of this week.
Yeah.
And you're very good on your socials, I feel like, letting people know what's going on.
Oh my God.
You can find everything.
Yeah,
And
cool. All right. Yeah, and also if people have questions after, I'll just answer them on the thread.
We'll give you Michelle's phone number. You can call her up.
Hey, it's not like my phone rings off the hook. So 888. No, sorry. Yeah, I guess it kind of brings us to the end. I'm really glad I had this time to spend with you and to think about lyrics this way. Thanks.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for the music. It's so beautiful. And I really, encourage everybody who hasn't listened through to listen to these songs, because I love your voice. I love your vibe. It's been so much fun for me to get into it.
Likewise. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.